Let's go ahead and get started, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for joining us tonight for this parent meeting. We have a lot to discuss, a lot of information. So we appreciate your time as we get set to reopen on Monday for our first phase. We'll be discussing all of that here tonight. A couple things that I wanted to really stress here before we get going with our agenda. Number one, so our plan moving into next week when we start with practice in phase one is to get our swimmers in as soon as we can. And we'll talk more about how that's going to happen with our protocol. But we're not planning to have an actual meeting with our athletes. So we really urge you to go over this with your athletes, with your swimmers at home, so they can be brought up to speed about the protocols and all the things that are going to be happening once we are able to get into the building on Monday. So I wanted to stress that. And then also, we'll talk about this as well. Like I said to start, there are many changes. This is not going to be practice as we've been accustomed to. As we've all been all learned over the last few months, changes will happen, and they may happen rapidly. So we ask you for your patience, for your cooperation as we get started with this. We know that it's not going to be perfect, but we want to make this, hopefully this transition is as easy as we can and as safe as possible. So with that, I want to go ahead and get started with our agenda. I would like to say to start, I know that we addressed this last week in an email as well. There was a university email sent that stated that youth programs would not continue, would not be able to meet in person through December 31st. So since that time, we have worked with our leadership in recreational services and submitted our policy, our plan, our protocol for continuing our program through the fall. And we've been asked to give a plan to the provost, and we have certainly done that in a short amount of time here, along with not only our program, but also tennis and rowing and others in the recreational services department. So we should know more soon. As soon as we do, we'll be able to share that with you, hopefully in the coming days. So please be patient with us as we learn more, and we'd like to continue sharing the information, like I said, as soon as we can. I'm going to backtrack here for just a second. I want to say, I want to just let you know who we have on the call here. We have Tanya, obviously our head age group coach. I want to introduce to you as well, I believe I saw her on this call. Is Emily there?
Yes, I'm here, Nate.
Thank you. Okay, Emily Downs is our new Associate Director for Aquatics within Recreational Services. So she's been kind enough to join us this evening as well. And she'll be being able to answer some questions too about our Rec Services Department as well. Also want to say that Tanya will be checking the chat. If you have any questions at all during this time, please let us know via the chat. We'll have some time at the end as well to go over any questions you may have. And if we run out of time this evening, feel free to please contact Tanya, myself, Chris, any or all of us with questions you may have via email, or give us a call, and we'll be happy to help. So, and I believe Chris is on here as well. He's got some information for us tonight too. Okay, with that, let's get into our phase reopening plan. So on Monday, the 27th, we are going to be able to open up to a few of our groups. So with our phase reopening plan, we have created this over the last several months in order to bring back a certain number of swimmers for the time that we're going to be allowed to be in the facility. So that's going to be a limited amount of time each day. We only have 3 time slots, if you will, each one of those days, Monday through Friday, and then a couple of them on Saturday morning as well. So As I said to start, it's going to be a little bit different each night or as we restart this, but we're going to have to roll with what we have and plan for what we do know and the pool time that we have going forward. So our plan is to have each one of those phases start 2 weeks after one another. So phase 2, 2 weeks after phase 1, and likewise phase 3, 2 weeks after phase 2. I sent an email earlier today, and there's one last week as well with practice times. We have to make sure that we have no more than 50 swimmers in the water at one time per session, even less than that actually, because we have to account for all the personnel on the deck, including lifeguards, swimmers, and coaches. So we understand not everyone will be able to come back at the same time. We wish we could do that, but we're going to work toward that through our phased approach here over the next several weeks. Along with that, as we've sent out in various emails over the last week, at this time, we're not going to move up swimmers into their groups as planned back in March. We will honor those move ups, but please be patient. Please give us time to do that past this phase reopening. Reason being, we have a very good handle on the numbers that we have, and we have to be able to, like I said, have those number of swimmers in the water for those certain time slots. So in time, again, we'll be able to move them up, but we ask for your patience right now as we get started here on Monday through these phases. Along with that, at this point, we've got some questions about what our schedule will look like after our phase reopening, and that remains unclear. And that's for a number of reasons, mainly of which we simply don't know what the pool hours will look like, or those time slots of those will change. Plus, we don't know what the Hawkeye schedule is at this point. As of right now, they're not practicing and they're not in a facility. When they are, things were going to change, I'm sure, again. So again, another reason for us to ask for your patience, and we are going to work with as much pool time as we can. Hopefully, after this phase reopening, we'll communicate that as soon as we know more. Do we have any questions so far?
No questions in the chat right now.
Good. Okay, great. We'll keep moving on. Let's get into spectator registration. So last week, I sent this information out in an email, or early this week, one of the two. There's been a lot of information going out, so I apologize. My dates are kind of run together here. For our spectators, it is important to remember the following. So if you would like to come to a practice and view the practice, you are welcome to do so. However, you must complete the following steps. And this is for all spectators. So if you and or your spouse plan to attend a practice, that's perfectly fine. But please fill out the form at this link for both yourself and your spouse. So you click on that form, fill it out. That'll go directly to our recreational services membership. And they will then take the information and enter it into what's called Fusion, which is the software that we use for our entrance into the building. And this will be monitored very closely, not only for spectators and our swimmers, but for everyone coming in and out of the building, starting this week and then moving forward, at least for the next several weeks ahead. So once you do that, you will then have to go onto the Rec Services website, sign up online to reserve your spot to watch the practice as a spectator. So as you can see, there's specific instructions here. You go onto that link, then you'll click on IFLY Spectator. Please do not click on the link for IFLY Swim Practice. You will see though, or the IFLY Swim Practice Again, that's not necessary for you to click on. We as coaches will register all of the swimmers in each group for each particular time or practice time. So that's not something you have to worry about. But we do ask that you sign up for your own time slot to see your swimmers practice. So you click on register under the practice time you'd like to attend, and you can select the person who will be spectating that particular practice. So I know it's much different than being able to walk into the CRWC or the field house like we were accustomed to, but as a stipulation to be open at the University of Iowa and the recreational services facilities, we must have an exact count of those numbers of people coming into the building each session, each day, really minute to minute. So once you as a spectator do enter the building, then we ask that you go upstairs and there'll be designated spots within the bleachers that you can have you or your family sit and then watch the practice and then leave immediately after we're done in the water. So we'll get to more of that here in just a little bit.
Nate, I've got
Yes.
2 questions. What if we, as parents, have to bring other children to practice? So can you maybe talk about registering everybody and also making note that there is a finite number of spots for that?
Yes, absolutely. So to talk about bringing other children to practice, those of whom may not be swimmers, that is fine. You can bring them into the building. Again, you have to fill out that form for that child. So not only yourself, but also for your child who may not be an IFLY member. They are welcome to come with you and be a spectator for that particular practice. That's certainly understandable. But we urge you to do so as early as you can by reserving that spot. There'll only be a certain amount of them that are going to be allowed in the stands at the CRWC. And you can start doing that now. We have spots available for those spectators at practices going into next week already online. So feel free to familiarize yourself with that program or that link and get signed up as soon as you can. But good questions. So we just ask that when you're up there in the stands that you're socially distant and are abiding by the policies of not only that, but also wearing face masks, which is not only a policy of recreational services, but now also of Iowa City itself as of yesterday.
Another question. I tried doing this last night, but since we are developmental, it really didn't work. So we need to wait until that group is officially back. Do we do it for every practice?
Yes, to both of those questions. So you in developmental groups will start in the phase 3, and those will be available. Those will come available hopefully about a week before we start that. Like I said, ideally we'd like to do that in the next, in phases of a couple of weeks apart, but that may change as well. To answer your other question, yes, you do have to register for every single practice. That way they can have an accurate count every day that we have spectators in the buildings, not only our spectators, but every patron that uses the building or will be entering into the facility. Good questions. Thank you.
Another question regarding this is, will practice be limited to one facility or will both facilities be utilized?
As of right now, only the CRWC is open. The plan may be later on, and we'll have to see how this goes. Again, there may be changes with this as well. But the plan now for the time being is to open the fieldhouse once school begins on August 24th. So for the next month or a few weeks ahead, we'll be using strictly the CRWC. And that's within the parameters of the space, the pool space, the lane space, and the time that we've been able to accrue at this point.
Last question for now. Where did it go? Let's see. If your child moved up from developmental in March, will we still be billed as developmental until we move up?
Yes. So that's our plan. Good question. Thank you for that.
So nobody has actually been moved up. Everybody is in the same groups that they were in March. So the billing will remain the same.
Yes. Good question. Thank you. As a final note there, spectators will not be granted access to the CRWC unless you have completed these requirements. It's important to note that. As again, I can't stress enough how important it is to do this, to be granted access into the building. It's not just us, it's every patron must have that information, be a member or have that information turned in so that they can be granted access to the building. Thank you for those questions. Certainly appreciated. And we're going to move on here in the agenda. All right, let's get into billing. This went out last week, these 3 points, not only spectator registration, but also billing. So this is a breakdown here of our phased reopening and how we plan to bill our members accordingly. So as we stated on July 27th, we will start with the groups there in the middle column, senior, elite, senior, junior, elite, junior, pre-elite, and masters. And we will start billing then on August 1st. So they'll be billed the full month of August. There's a special note there for the high school girls that will be hopefully, potentially starting their high school season. And they will be billed for a half a month for those 2 weeks leading up to the time they'll start on, I believe it's August 10th for their high school season. For phase 2, if everything goes accordingly and we move into phase 2 a couple weeks later, then those 2 groups, sophomore and freshman, will be billed for half a month of August. And then as we start phase 3, hopefully at the end of August, they'll be billed for a full month of September for the developmental groups. Any questions so far with the billing?
Will we get notified of move-ups when they plan to occur since the plan has changed since March? Yes. Similar to what we have done in the past. We'll give you at least 2 weeks to make schedule changes and to accept the invitation.
Absolutely. We'll be as transparent as we possibly can with all of that information, just like we have in the past. Tanya, can I ask you to speak about the equipment, please?
Absolutely. Okay. So it is highly recommended that all swimmers have their own equipment. It reduces touch points, and I think it'll be much easier on our swimmers. We will have kickboards and buoys, no fins, kickboards and buoys available, and they will be disinfected after each practice, but I think it's going to be beneficial for swimmers to have their own equipment. Having said that, I have talked with Eric from Splash Multisport, our team store, and he is ready for orders. They have ordered a lot. They have a lot in stock because they were anticipating this might happen. So his goal is will be to be able to take your orders, turn right around, and get them shipped out to you as quick as they can. I would recommend that if you got an invitation to move to a next group, I would recommend getting the equipment for that next group. If you have any questions about what you should get, please don't put it in the chat here. Rather, please email me and I will address any of your equipment questions that you may have going forward.
Thank you, Tanya, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving along into practice protocol. So our apologies with Chris Freeman. He's having some technical difficulties with his computer, as we have all experienced, I'm sure, at this time, through this time. But we do have, we wanted to show you a diagram, and Chris has really worked hard to create this information. But he has put together a diagram that will be specific to each lane of the CRWC, and it will have a lane assignment for each person within those lanes when we start practice on Monday. So we will post that information. Chris is wrapping those up here by the end of this week. We'll post that on our website before we resume practices on the 27th, so that everyone knows when they come into the pool, when they enter the pool deck, where they will go and where they'll be assigned to a specific lane and a spot in that lane as well. So again, in order to provide the safest environment possible, we want to make sure that our swimmers remain socially distant even in the water. So due to that and the regulations set upon us by USA Swimming, we want to make sure we're in compliance with that as well. So that's something we'll take very seriously, and that we expect our swimmers to be accustomed to over the course of this phase reopening. And I think once we get going with it after the first session, they'll know exactly where to go, and it'll move rather quickly. So any questions about that so far? My apologies, and Chris as well. He's texting me here and has some problems with his computer. But we'll make sure to post those. We'll have copies of those on deck as coaches when we're there, and make sure everyone knows where they're going as we start.
So with our older groups, everybody from sophomore on up to senior elites will have no more than 4 people per lane, 2 at each end. Our younger groups, our developmentals and our freshmen, will keep it to about 2 per lane, just so you're aware of that.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. All right, let's move on to the practice protocol at the CRWC. So this document has a lot of details. Purposely, we want to make sure that we have a thorough plan for our athletes to understand, as well as our spectators, that when they come in the building, this gives them a comprehensive timeline of what to expect, before, during, and after practice here. So we'll go through this step by step. If you have any questions, once again, please put them in the chat, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A toward the end as well. Let's start with coaches before we get going with our swimmers and parents. So we as coaches will be wearing face coverings, and that's a recreational services department mandate or policy as well. It will be worn, mask or shield will be worn by coaches throughout the entire practice. Coaches will be stationed on opposite ends of the lanes and spaced out as per social distancing guidelines. So another note on that is that our pool will be, well, it currently is set up as widths of the 50-meter pool. So it is not a 50-meter course right now. It has been set up so that there are 19 to 20 lanes going across the pool, set up in 25 yards, of which in the morning we'll have a few more, and the evening sessions we'll be sharing with lap swim. So we'll be at either end of that course on both sides. Okay, swimmers and parents. Before practice, then I must stress this, please, you take nothing else away from this tonight. I know that we're all very familiar with these symptoms, but if your swimmer is sick, please, we ask you sincerely to keep them home. Please do not jeopardize the health of our members, our IFLY members, our coaches, but also the patrons in the building from the community. If your swimmer is experiencing any flu-like symptoms, fever, chills, cough, shortness of breath, recent loss of taste or smell, he or she must stay home. Please recognize that and keep them home while they have these symptoms. It is imperative that we do so and abide by those policies. Swimmers will not be required to come to practice, excuse me, they will be required to come to practice in their suits. So showering or changing at the pool is not allowed. We will not be using the locker rooms. Any swimmer found doing this will not be allowed to practice. And also, per USA Swimming rules, deck changing is also prohibited. So we ask that your athletes are ready to go from the time they leave home, have their suits on, and then come to practice, be able to put their belongings down in the designated spot. We'll get to that here in a second, and then be able to go right into the pool. So we simply don't have any time to waste, but more importantly, those facilities, we don't want our athletes being in there and milling around and having any other exposure, possibly. Swimmers must make sure they have all equipment, as there will be no shared or borrowed gear. So as Tanya said before, please be sure you have an extra cap, extra goggles, things like that they can and will break during the course of a practice. Swimmers must make sure they bring a full water bottle. The water fountains will not be operational. They are not on at the current time. So please be prepared. We want, as we always do, we want every swimmer to bring their own water bottle to practice and have those readily available at the end of their lane. Swimmer asked to take a shower at home before arriving at practice or to practice. And then swimmers must be able to put on their own caps, as teammates and coaches will not be able to help because of social distancing requirements. So make sure if you have, you don't have as much experience with that as we get into our phases, especially the younger swimmers, that they're practicing at home and are able to do that on their own. Also, girls who have suits that tie in the back and they may need help, please know that they must do that themselves. So be prepared for that as well. We don't want to have other athletes or their friends tying those up in the middle of practice, as we need to remain socially distant. Any questions so far about before practice or how our coaches are going to adhere to our protocols?
We've got a question. With the kids that have been training together during the off time, will they be kept together in the lanes?
Well, we have them according to our charts. We don't necessarily know who's been training together. So we're going to put them according to how we feel best is they're going to be spread out and on our charts. So that may change over time, but for the time being, as we get started, we're going to assign them accordingly as best we can. Okay, let's move on to arrival to the CRWC. As we stressed before with spectators, but now also with swimmers. So each swimmer must have an access card, blue or yellow. So as I said before as well, all swimmers, all the athletes will be pre-registered for a specific practice time. So let's say, for instance, the senior elite group that will be practicing in the morning from 8:45 to 9:45. They can enter the building at 8:30 or just a couple of minutes before that. I think they have 5 minutes before that. But from 8:30 to 8:45, that's essentially the check-in time. Be prepared as well to be on time, as you may have to wait in line a little bit to enter the building. That's something, again, we're gonna have to be accustomed to and be patient with as we are reopening here. But as far as pre-registration goes, our coaches will put those athletes into the software, into Fusion ahead of time. We're working on that now to be able to make sure that they don't have, or you as parents don't have to register for them for each practice as you would as a spectator. So we are going to assume that we'll have 100% attendance of those groups. Everyone will be registered for each practice Monday through Friday and Saturday morning as well for those groups. it is really imperative, very important to be on time. As I talked about before, there may be some lines as we head into the building to check in, more than usual. So we stress patience and understanding with that. Swimmers and the parents are allowed in the facility 5 minutes prior to the start of that time slot. So for instance, we've been allotted the 8:30 to 10 o'clock time slot in the morning, and then 4 to 5:30 and 5:30 to 7 in the evening. So we have an hour of that time in the water. So from 8:30 to 8:45 in the morning, that's our buffer time. Once we enter the water at 8:45, we really don't have any time to waste. We're going to use that for as much training as we possibly can in that time. And then we have to promptly exit the water within an hour's time. So in the morning at 9:45, we must exit and get out of the pool right away. So it's really important that everyone's there. Please have that understanding before practices that you come in. We're not going to be able to disrupt practice, or we don't want to disrupt practice by having swimmers show up late. We want to start them, get them in on time, and get going for our practice right away. As we talked about before, all parents are spectators. Any spectators must sign up for that time slot, that particular time slot, to watch their swimmers. This cannot be done at the facility, so you're not going to be able to check in when you get there. You have to do this ahead of time online. Again, this is a policy for everyone. We're putting our swimmers in there as coaches, all of our groups. Everyone who comes in to work out must have already pre-registered for that particular time slot.
Quick question.
Yes.
To be clear, kids should not put on any clothes over their suit. I answered this one. I can answer this one.
Thank you.
No problem. You may wear clothes over your suit, but the important thing to remember here is all swimmers will come already in their suit, and they will leave in their suit, and they will not have access to a locker room to change. It's going to be a wrap up and go. So if you want to throw your shirt and your shorts back on, that's absolutely fine, but you will not have access to a locker room.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. Okay, last couple of bullet points there. We went through this one prior as well. Regardless if you're a rec services member, if you have a yellow card, or IFLY member with a blue card, you must have that account updated or your information updated so you can be approved for entrance into the building. So please, if you have not done that already, it's imperative that you do that as soon as possible. And then anyone entering into rec services facilities must wear a face mask. Again, this is not only a policy of rec services now, but also an ordinance from the city of Iowa City. Any other questions so far? All right. Let's move on now as we progress through our timeline. So our swimmers have now entered the building, spectators as well, into the CRWC, and now they're ready to make their way onto the pool deck. So once they're there, we ask that they keep their face coverings on until they prepare to enter the water. So we have, I'll get to this here in a minute as well, always continue to maintain that 6 feet of social distance at all times. So we have designated bleacher areas along the the west side of the building, the west side of the pool deck, over by the team room and where the meet control room is as well. So we've designated those bleacher areas for our IFLY swimmers. They all have markings on them that are black circular marking with a white X where you can put down your swim bag and then take your equipment that you'll need for the pool, take that to your designated spot, to your lane space where you've been assigned to. So all of these areas have already been pre-assigned. They've been pre-marked as of now, ready to go for Monday. And we ask that you head straight there, check in with the coach, head straight there, and then go right to your designated lane space. Again, they're all pre-assigned to minimize the mingling among group members. I know it's going to be very tempting as we get back. We're going to see friends that we haven't seen in some time. More than likely, we're going to want to talk and socialize. It's going to be very difficult to hold back that temptation. So we need to hold each other accountable and make sure we're holding each other to that social distance as well. We ask you to check in with a coach, like I said, and proceed directly to that pre-assigned lane or end of the pool. Parents and spectators will proceed directly to their spectator seating. They're not allowed on deck, and again, expected to maintain 6 feet of social distancing at all time. If you have your family there, of course, we understand you're gonna, it's gonna be a little bit tougher to keep siblings or younger children away from each other. We ask that you maintain that space with your family. Moving on to while we're in the water during practice, again, swimmers are to remain in the water for the duration of practice. So we want to make sure that they're in the water and we're training as much as we can in that hour time that we have. No sharing of equipment will be allowed. Again, we talked about this as well. Goggles, caps. Hopefully no one's ever sharing with snorkel, but especially now. In case you have a need for those, please plan accordingly, plan ahead. We shall have 2 caps and two pairs of goggles in our bag anyways. So now's a good time to kind of restock that for your swim bag and be ready to go for the first practice. As we said before, we have a limited time in the water, so we want to make sure our focus is on the practice. Disruption during practice takes away from that time, not only for the coach, but the entire group in the pool. So we ask that you are behaving yourself accordingly and you're there to train and to improve in that time that we have, which is limited at this point. After practice. So as we said as well, when practice concludes, swimmers and spectators alike have 15 minutes to exit the building. So once we'll have to wrap up promptly at, let's say, 9:45 or at 5:15 in the afternoon, you have that time to leave the pool deck. Basically, as Tanya said earlier, wrap and go, dry yourself off. You can throw a pair of shorts and shirt on over your suit and head out from the pool deck as soon as possible. So we want those athletes to have that time to head out of the pool deck and exit the building before that next time slot, the next wave of individuals comes into the building. So as well, on top of that, parents must be ready to pick up their athletes as soon as practice finishes. You'll be able to do that at the southwest entrance, or southeast entrance adjacent from lot 11 as we do normally, or at the main entrance there closer to Burlington Street. So please be on time. Again, just like we asked our athletes to be on time for practice, we must have our athletes out of the building in a timely fashion according to rec services policies. Again, they stress the importance that changing indoor showering is not allowed. No deck changing. No one will be allowed into the locker room areas. Going back, I failed to mention that, of course, if you are in need of a bathroom, we are going to be able to use the one person or one user bathroom on deck, just one user at a time there during practice if need be.
All right, so we have a question.
Yes.
Masks on until they get in the water and then back on when immediately after getting out?
Correct. So we ask that they have a mask on for the time they come to the pool deck. Once they find their spot on the bleachers, they can put take their clothes off that they have over their swimsuits, take off their mask, and then head to the pool, head to their designated spot. Same for when they get out. So they don't have to have them right there at the pool's edge. Have them have them at their swim bags on the designated bleacher spot. Get out, towel off, put on your mask, put on your clothes, and go. Good question.
Are the same parking lot rules enforced? Do you know? Pay per hour, 30-minute zones?
I believe so. That's a good question. That's one we haven't necessarily been updated about, but I think they're still the same practices, yes. A few more things here to wrap up. Some of our older swimmers especially have their training bags, their own mesh bags, and they're accustomed to sometimes be able to store those at the CRWC in the storage room. We will not be allowed to do that for the time being. So again, all of your belongings, including your mesh bags, please plan to take those with you as you exit the building.
Just a real quick announcement. Thank you, Emily, for reminding us. For those of you who have not been downtown in a while, the intersection of Burlington and Madison is completely blocked. So when you are making arrangements to get here to the CRWC, make sure you leave a few extra minutes to get around the construction.
Another thing that Emily reminded us last night, and I failed to mention again this evening, please, when you pack a water bottle, make sure it's plastic. Let's not have any glass on the pool deck. As you all know, we've been through that before. Let's not get back in the pool and have any glass breakage. We appreciate that. A couple of last points here. All departures will be monitored by the IFLY staff. Again, remain socially distant, and spectators and parents are not allowed to go anywhere else in the building en route to the exit. So again, take your belongings, dry off, get dressed or change right there on deck, and then head out to meet your parents, or if you're driving yourself as an older swimmer, exit as soon as possible. Congregating and lingering on the pool deck will not be allowed. We must clear the area for the next group so we can disinfect and get into the next group of individuals to come in and use the pool. So that does it for the information. I want to stress overall everyone's adherence to these guidelines. I know that it's been an up and down process over the last few months to get to this point, and we thank you for your patience. The last thing we want to happen is for our swimmers not to obey these guidelines, and then for us not to be able to continue because of that. So please encourage strict adherence. Our coaching staff will do the same in the facility, but we ask for your cooperation as parents to be able to do that with your swimmers and with your children as well. That will only help the situation going forward. And we want to provide the safest environment as we possibly can for each individual swimmer, spectator, any patron coming in the building, as much as we possibly can. So we truly appreciate that cooperation. I know we're all excited to get back into the water. We're very excited to be able to have the opportunity to get on the pool deck. So let's make the most of that opportunity. And I know that, like I said at the beginning of this, there's going to be a lot different, but these are the new normal, and we're going to have to abide by those rules for the time being until further notice. So thank you very much again this evening for being here. I want to open up to Tanya and Emily if they have any further comments, and then we'll also take some Q&A here over the next few minutes.
So real quickly, I don't know if I can share my screen.
Let me see if I can get out of mine, Tanya.
Okay. All right, let me see if I can share my screen real quickly. Can y'all see the IFLY logo? The
Yes.
IFLY homepage? Okay, great. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly get signed on. Don't look at my login. All right, so I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention this IFLY COVID-19 programming tab. If you click on it, I have all of what we have talked about listed in the beginning of our programming during closure, okay? Under IFLY Return to Pool, can you all see that? Yes, okay. All of the emails with the handouts that we just went over are here in chronological order. The practice schedule for phase 1 is also located here, as well as on the IFLY calendars. The Zoom meeting links are here. Recreational services COVID-19 resource page is here. The online reservation system link is here, and as well as the link to that, the form that needs to be filled out so you can register. So I want to, again, encourage you to look at this programming page, because I try and keep it up to date, and I update it frequently throughout the week. So this is a good resource for you. I'm done.
Thank you, Tanya. Emily, anything to share?
Sure. I just want to let everybody know that Tanya, Nate, Chris, these IFLY coaches have worked really hard on this reopening plan. It hasn't been easy. They spent the last few months, really building this plan, and there's been times that we had to start all over. We've really had to follow policies guided by the CIMT per the university. We have to follow recreational services guidelines. We've been following USA Swimming guidelines. We've been working with other clubs in the area. We've been working with clubs in other states just to see what other clubs are doing. We're working with other Big Ten schools and what their internal youth clubs are doing as well. So it's been a lot of collaboration. Like Nate said, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and we've been doing our best in communicating with all of you. The page that Tanya just showed you on the website, that's very informative. Please take the time to read through that. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the coaches. But everything that we've put into place, we feel is safe. We feel it will be effective as long as everybody is informed and arrives to practice on time and follows these guidelines. So I want to thank Nate, Tanya, and Chris for working really hard on this.
Thank you, Emily. Much appreciated. We have some time here now for some questions. You can either place those in the chat, continue to do that way. You can raise your hand. We'll try to call on you, or if you just want to speak up, feel free. Once again, if you don't feel comfortable in this setting, feel free at any time to email, to give us a call, shoot us a text, however you feel comfortable. We'll certainly get back to you so that we're all as informed as possible. I feel like I need to play the Jeopardy song.
No, right? No questions means we answered everybody's question, right? We had quite a few parents saying thank you, and we appreciate your kind words. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. That's much appreciated.
We are in the process of changing these videos into links. And once I get those links, I will put those on the IFLY programming page. So if you want to refer to these or watch the parent meetings again, you will have access to those. It'll take a little bit, but once I get them, I'll put them on the IFLY programming page.
Yes, thank you for that, Tanya. If you'd like to review that, or as we said, all this information is on there as well. I encourage you to go back and reread or refresh your memory as we get started with each one of these phases. And we'll continue to keep everyone very much updated as to not only the phases, but also any news we may hear back from the Office of the Provost here in the near future. So, extra precaution for physical distancing with the developmental group. Yes, so I believe Tanya mentioned this before. We will have a smaller number or lesser number of developmental swimmers in the water or in each lane when we do start that phase. So only 2 swimmers, 1 at each end, And we hope by that time to be able to use the field house in the shallow end for that. Yes, thank you. Very good question.
All right. If signing up for a time slot to view practice, can we arrive at any point during that time slot?
That's a good question. I believe the answer is yes to that. Emily's nodding as well. I can see her. So yes, if you want to drop them off and you have, let's say, another errand to run and you want to come in at any point during that time, I believe that's possible. Yes. That's a new one.
That's a good question.
Yes, it is. No, you have to be there exactly on time. No, okay.
The swimmers have to be there exactly
Yes.
on time.
We do appreciate the questions. There's always something that we haven't thought of.
Nate, I just want to add one thing, kind of piggybacking off of that question. I do believe once spectators check in, it will be helpful on the front desk staff if once you check in that you stay in the facility, or if you need to leave, that you leave and don't re-enter, just so they don't have to go back to your check-in and try and sign you in again when you've already signed in earlier for that 1 hour time. So if you can make the decision to either come in and watch the whole practice, or if you need to leave early, try not to re-enter. That will definitely help the front desk staff down at the desk.
Good advice. Thank you.
All right. So somebody, DHZN, has raised their hand. Go ahead and speak when you're ready.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Darren Hostetler. Thanks for all the information and hard work you guys have been putting together. Quick question about when the swimmers come in to kind of sign in and register, is there a separate sign in for the swimmers versus the parent or whoever's with them, or are they going through the same line? Just as far as streamlining the swimmers to get in there to maximize the time that they swim. Just kind of curious as to how that's going to run.
Good question. Hi, Darren. Thanks for being here with us tonight. No, there will not be a separate line. So we will have all of our swimmers and spectators go through the same line. There's only one into the building for all patrons at this time currently. That's because we have to have that essentially population control into the building and monitor how many patrons are in there at all times. So we've asked to have a separate entrance as well. We've not been granted that up until this point. But if anything does change, we'll certainly let you know. But that's a very good question. So please, yes, if you're able to come a couple minutes early, be prepared for that, and we'll get those swimmers in the water as soon as we can. The first practice or so, first day or two, we expected there to be some hiccups in that timeline, and we'll just have to adjust accordingly until we get some sense of normalcy with our practice times.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
There is a question. Are we taking temperatures like we do at the clinics and doctor's offices?
No, we have not currently been asked to do that under our protocol. If, again, that changes, we will certainly make you aware of that right away.
By what date would you like to know the billing change if our daughter is switching to high school? Information about the session has been hard to come by. Oh, I see what you're asking. Billing for high school swimmers.
Do you want to answer it, Tanya?
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So if there is a high school season, then absolutely what we'll do is those that are part of members of our club, for the first couple of weeks, our plan from July 27th until the time they start. As of August 1, we will charge for the half a month of August. And then for the months of September and October, if they're participating with their respective high school teams, we'll honor the limited participation fee of $45, which states that they can attend up to 4 IFLY practices in those months. So hopefully, I hope that answers your question. Any others in the chat, Tanya?
Lynn, do you want to ask your question or do you want to email me?
Yeah, I can ask, thanks.
Okay.
So it looks like this is the first time we're going to have Isabel with City High and also with the IFLY. Assuming that City High starts their swim schedule practice, it looks like it'll be the same as what IFLY's practice is. Like Monday through Friday, the girls are swimming 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And with IFLY, they're like 4 to 5 or something, or 5 to 6. So they just, do you guys want to know if the girls are missing practice for you guys? Do you want us to keep in contact, or will you guys just know that she's with City High and she's not going to be attending?
You're more than welcome to keep us informed of that. We ask that you do. You know, if they're planning to go with their high school team full time, that's totally your choice. And you can, if they are, please let us know, and we'll just make sure we're not billing that accordingly. So under normal circumstances, I would say we have some morning practices that alternate with the high school schedule as well. So we're able to offer those to the girls and boys that do have their high school seasons in session. So that's where that comes into play. This year's a little bit different with those schedules conflicting. So there may not be as much of a need for those high school swimmers to come to IFLY practice. But yeah, things may change. So just keep us informed. We'll certainly work with whatever Isabel decides to do according to her plan.
So I'm assuming if they're with City High, they should probably practice with the City High team during the season, right?
That's encouraged. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, just a couple minutes here. Any other further questions? Once again, as Tanya said, we'll be converting this video and posting it on the website as soon as we can. Want to thank everyone for their participation tonight. In advance, we appreciate your cooperation. We understand it's not going to be perfect, but as I said before, we want to provide the safest environment possible for everyone. So much appreciated. We look forward to seeing you all on the pool deck very soon. Thank you very much.